Welcome to Bring Your Brilliance. Are you ready to find and amplify your voice? Looking to be inspired by those who are already out there making it happen? Listen in as we shine a light on those who bring their full, authentic selves to do what they love, make no apologies, and don't try to fit into other people's boxes. With your host, Carla Taylor, who, after years of being inspired by the brilliantly shining people she was meeting, decided others need to hear these stories too.
Hello and welcome to Bring Your Brilliance. I'm your host, Carla Taylor. We are here on the Inspired Choices Network. It's all about being inspired and making awesome choices and bringing your brilliance to all the awesome things that we get to talk about. I know I say this every show, but this is one of my favorite people. And that's the thing, like, as we talk about on Bring Your Brilliance, there are amazing people all around you. And what's so wonderful about doing this show is that I get to have these conversations with people that I might not have otherwise asked them the questions to find out what was going on with them and what their brilliance is. And everybody has something so amazing that you just have to uncover. And I can't even tell you, I could spend a whole entire episode just talking about the amazing people that I've been meeting everywhere, even here in Indianapolis, but all over the world. And Mike is one of them. So in a minute, we'll start talking to him. But Mike Blankenship is our guest today. And I originally met Mike, 2 or 3 years ago. He was an author for Success Magazine, I believe it was. And I was one of the people that he interviewed to answer a question and be quoted in the magazine. And he and I hit it off and just started talking and developed a friendship. And we've been connecting ever since. I'm going to let him share his story. But he was one of my very first people that I interviewed when I started Bring Your Brilliance as a podcast over a year ago. I was originally going to do it myself and try to do all my own editing and everything, and I realized that I love having this awesome production team here at the radio station. So if any of you are interested in becoming a host, I highly recommend it. I just started in July. It's been an exhilarating ride. I'm still learning as I go, but that's really what it's all about. So Mike is like the embodiment of learning as you go. I'm going to give you a little bit of his background and introduction, and then we're going to dive right in and find out what's been going on. So Mike and I had our first interview, which I will also be publishing after this airs, of where he was a year ago, which was right before he embarked on this journey. So it's going to be really fun. I haven't actually talked live with him since then. So I'm going to be learning right alongside you of what this last year has been like for him. But Mike is what we call a digital nomad. So have you ever wondered what it would be like to be a digital nomad? Or do you actually even know what a digital nomad is? So we're checking back in with Mike Blankenship. Again, I first met him when he interviewed me for a Success Magazine article. Mike and his wife and his daughter have been traveling the world for over a year now as they live and work in multiple countries. So if you thought you had to be a single person or somebody who didn't have kids yet to make this happen, Mike is here to shatter all of those beliefs and show you how he is living this amazing life. So again, right before he was about to embark on the journey, I interviewed him from one of my very first podcasts. And we're going to be catching up right now here today, live for the very first time talking. We've done a lot of emailing and texting and Facebook messaging back and forth, but we haven't talked live. And we're going to discuss what's happened since he first embarked on this digital nomad life and lessons learned along the way. So Mike is a world traveler, father, husband, marketer, writer, self-development nerd, and the owner of Get Your Gusto Back, a platform he dedicated to helping people reignite their passion and fervor for life. He's created content strategies for multiple Inc. 5000 companies that led to 100% year-over-year traffic and lead gen growth. Mike works remotely and lives as a digital nomad as he travels the world with his wife and daughter, inspiring people everywhere he goes, and even back here as we watch him from afar. He is a contributor to Success, Smart Blogger, Get Response, Jeff Bullis, Adweek, and a whole slew of other productions, and has been mentioned in Forbes and Entrepreneur. Mike, welcome to the show.
Wow, thank you so much. What an introduction. That sounds so amazing.
Well, you deserve
oh my
it.
God. Thank you, Carla. It's so exciting to be here. I can't believe that the last time I talked to you was it's kind of funny. Like the last time I talked to you was before I left. Like maybe feels like it was like a couple weeks before I left.
It was right before. It was less than a week before you left. Yeah, you were getting ready to go.
So.
You had, yep. So you were
so
like
nervous.
excited and ready to go, and not really knowing what was coming, but embracing the adventure. And I'm so excited. I've been watching you guys. You post a lot. You do a lot of Facebook Live. So I've been watching you, but I would love to hear more from you. So first of all, where are you now?
Okay.
Start there.
Yeah, let's start there. So real quick though, it's actually, I think like on September, so this month, it's what I was going to say is it's funny because this month it's actually been a full year of traveling.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny that like, it was, you know, we talked right before, and I'd love for you to publish that episode, and then it's like you got this kind of cool before and after thing. But but right now we're in the Czech Republic in Prague, which is sort of the must-see city in the Czech Republic.
Wow. And how long have you been in that location?
We've been here for about a week and a half, and typically we stay in places for a month. We found that seems to be like a good chunk of time to get to experience places without feeling too rushed.
So tell me how that decision even came about. Were you originally intending to do a month at a time, or did you try a few things and land on that, or how did you get to that time frame?
I think that that's a good question. When we were originally talking about doing this, I think we were planning on doing like actually when we were originally talking about it, we were thinking about doing like a year in Spain. And I don't know why Spain, other than like it sounded cool. So we had literally no idea anything about Spain. So we were just like thinking about doing it. And so we were going to do a year there, and then it kind of went down to like, well, it'd be more fun to travel around, but we wanted enough time with my work and having a young daughter to be able to explore each place fully. And so then it kind of went down to like, well, let's do 3 months. And then it's like, well, or we could do a month and get to see a whole lot more in less time. So, and a month felt like, because, you don't, just with a kid, like, even packing and moving every month is a lot. So, like,
that is a lot.
Doing it more than that, I think, would be, like, crazy.
Well, and I imagine a month is probably like a good lease term. It's either usually like a week or a month, right? So that's probably works well for that.
It is.
And then it gives you a little bit of time to get to know the area. Mm-hmm. But like you said, you get to go to several places then too, and not spend the whole year in one place.
Yeah, exactly. And we use Airbnb. So and by using Airbnb, if you stay for a month, you usually get like a 20 or 30% discount.
That's good to know.
Yeah, exactly. So rather than staying like, for 3 weeks and paying the same amount as you would for a month, we stay a month. And we have a couple strategies actually around like getting cheaper prices that we've learned, but yeah.
So what are some of those strategies? Are you willing to share your secrets?
I wasn't
sure.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I just wasn't sure if you wanted me to dive into that.
Yeah.
Okay. So one thing we do, this is, I guess, our main strategy, is we'll find a list of like 5 to 10 Airbnbs that we are considering staying in, and then we will basically send a message to each of those hosts saying, hey, we really liked your place and we would love to stay in your place for a month, which is a long time for most Airbnb hosts. But this other person is offering us 30% to stay in their Airbnb. Can you match that? And some of them will, some of them won't. But there's been a few times where we've saved up to $1,000 on our place by doing that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So highly recommend it.
Wow. So let me back up because we haven't heard your whole backstory. And I met you before you even had a baby. I remember you were like terrified about being a father at the beginning. Like all of us are when we first become a parent. But where were you living before you started this journey? Let's start there.
Okay.
What was your life like before?
Yeah, that's a great question. So before we did this, so if I back up to where I sort of credit this whole journey for starting, it goes back to when my wife and I had a trip booked to go to Hawaii for a month.
I remember that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. And we were super excited, and we'd never been to Hawaii. It's still on our list, actually, and you'll know why in a second if you're listening to this. And we were really excited, and then the week that we were going to go, a freaking volcano, or not, maybe it was a volcano, like in a hurricane.
It was a volcano. It was the lava that went everywhere.
Yeah. And all this stuff happened on the island we were going to go to, and in the same area. And this was a week before we were leaving, and so everything
it was all over the news. It was crazy happening out there, and you were like, what do we do?
Yeah. Oh my God, it was nuts. It was just like so out of left field. And so my wife and I are laying in bed and just like, man, what are we gonna do? And I remember she's like, well, we could go to Australia. And I look at her and I'm like, what the hell's in Australia? Like, what are we going to do in Australia? You know, I'm thinking, like, everything kills you. You got crocodiles and sharks and snakes. And, you know,
well, and I know we've got listeners in Australia who are going to be cracking up at this, and they probably will be sharing all the awesome things to do in Australia. But you did find out, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. And because then my wife showed me some pictures of Cairns, Australia. And it's, you know, this beautiful rainforest. I believe it's the oldest rainforest in the world, and it's just incredible. And so I saw some pictures of that and of the coastline, and it's green and beautiful. And I'm just like, okay, all right, let's do it. So my incredible
and they speak English, right? That was another factor.
And oh man, yes, that was a big win. Yeah, that's huge. But they have cool accents too, which is a win.
Yes.
So my crazy, amazing wife, got refunded pretty much everything for our Hawaii trip and canceled everything.
That's
and
great. I always wondered about that.
Yeah, and booked a month-long trip in like 5 days to Australia. Crazy.
Now, had you guys ever traveled before outside the country?
On one time on a 5-day cruise to Mexico. And we only stayed in like the resort.
This was really a brand new experience for you.
Oh, this is we both grew up in a town of 40,000 people in Southern Oregon. We are not, you know, never lived in a big city, never went out much further than a couple states outside of Oregon. This was all very new. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So small town Oregon, you've gone on one cruise, you're trying to go to Hawaii, which already seems far and exotic. You can't go because of lava. So you end up having this amazing wife who's magical and changes everything at the last minute to this awesome place in Australia.
Incredible.
So we're getting ready to take our first break. I want to start there when we get back from break to hear what happened once you got to Australia and what changed everything for you. So, again, this is Carla Taylor. I am interviewing Mike Blankenship. He is an amazing digital nomad, as well as all the other things we talked about. We're here on Inspired Choices Network on the Bring Your Brilliance radio show, and we will be right back.
We all have a personal brand. It's what people say about you when you're not in the room. What if you knew how to clearly and confidently communicate your value in a compelling way? Tune into the Bring Your Brilliance radio show with personal branding and LinkedIn strategist Carla Taylor to discover the tools, resources, and inspiration you need to get started and keep growing. Are you ready to make your mark? Learn how to bring your brilliance by listening to the Bring Your Brilliance radio show every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Mountain, and 7 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Bring Your Brilliance radio show with personal branding and LinkedIn strategist Carla Taylor. To join today's conversation, call in the U.S. at 815-880-8255 or Canada at 613-800-8736 or Skype at Inspired Choices Network. Or ask a question or send a comment by email at bringyourbrilliance@gmail.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. I am Carla Taylor. We are here on the Bring Your Brilliance radio show talking to Mike Blankenship about living the digital nomad life. This is the Inspired Choices Network, and this was certainly an inspired choice for you. Mike, we were just talking about how you ended up diverting to Australia after having planned to go to Hawaii. So then what happened next?
Yeah, okay, so we went to Australia. My wife booked the amazing trip, and we had a 17, at the time, little Andy, then named Baby Andy. We like to upgrade her first name. was only 9 months old, so she was just a wee lass.
Teeny tiny.
Oh man, yeah, very much so. And we went to Australia. It was, I believe, it was a 17-hour flight with one layover in there somewhere.
Wow.
Which on its own was life-changing.
That's a long flight for a 9-month-old baby.
It was really long. It was really long. And a lot of people ask us, how did you, they ask a couple things. They ask, how did you do it, obviously. And they ask why did you do it? And our answers to those questions are really pretty simple. The how is basically, once you're on a plane, you have to stay on the plane. So you figure it out. There's really no how.
True.
You do what you have to do to make it happen. As long as you can get yourself on the plane, you're going to make it to the end of the trip. And the why I think is more important is that we knew that we knew that the plane flight was going to be, really challenging. But we also knew that after one day of extreme challenge, we'd have a whole month of new experiences and having an amazing time. And to us, that was really simple math. It was really worth it.
So it was worth it to get through that, to get to the experience that you were headed towards.
Absolutely. No question asked. Yeah, it was just, we were very nervous for Australia. That's another side of the story. But in terms of having Andy along on the plane with us, yeah, it was just a matter of okay, it's 17 hours. We know it's going to suck. We know it's going to be really hard, but then it's over and we're done.
Right.
It's if we can't get through 17 hours to enjoy a whole month, what are we doing?
That's true. I did fly with my babies, multiple babies. 3 babies at 9 months, so I know exactly what that age is like on an airplane. That was a trip. But I had other adults with me, so we had one adult per baby. So it wasn't as hard as it sounds. But yeah, that was a 3-hour flight. So I can't imagine a 3-hour flight was hard enough with one on one. I can't imagine 17 hours for poor little baby Andy.
Oh man,
but you did it. It was worth it. You got there,
and we made it. And she survived, and my wife survived, and I survived, and it was hard, but we made it. Yeah. And so we got to Australia, and our stroller was broken in two when we got there, so we had to get that replaced. And and we it was kind of this crazy screw in what was going on, because we were already jet lagged and just sort of mind blown by being in another country, and then just one thing led to another. We had rented a car for the whole month, and I was really terrified about driving on the left side of the road, but I did it.
Yeah.
And now driving in other countries is probably my favorite thing to do. I love it. It's so fun.
Really?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's such an empowering feeling to be able to travel.
Do you ever
in a
get
country on your own.
confused as to which side of the road you need to be on as you go to different countries?
Yeah, no, exactly. Because we, in this year long of travel, we for a little bit we bounced between the UK and Europe, and we kept like bouncing back between, and like I lost all sense for what was right and what was wrong.
That would be really hard.
Oh my God, it was tough. Yeah, but again, it's fun, and you learn that you're extremely adaptable. So I learned that I was really adaptable to these situations, which grew my confidence in myself and all these things. So when we left Australia, though, I remember we drove back, and we were driving back into our hometown because we were coming home, obviously, and we just finished traveling. We just passed through the welcome sign into our hometown, and I remember just like the moment we did, there was just like this. It was just like a ton of bricks fell on my head. And I was like, and I won't say the cuss word. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss, but I said a cuss word. And I was like, oh man, I knew in that moment that I didn't want to live there anymore. It was just really, really clear. And Michaela felt the same thing. And so
it wasn't even like a gradual thing. It was like, boom, I know this.
No, we just knew, yeah. I mean, I think it was something that while we were in Australia was starting to sort of settle in, and we were starting to realize that the world is a big place and there's so much to explore. And then when we drove back into our hometown and saw like all the things we were so used to seeing, it was just like, oh man, I don't want to be here. Like I want to be exploring. I want to be seeing new things. I don't want to see this anymore. Like I've seen this for 25 years, 24 years of my life, and I want to see other stuff now.
So once you expanded your horizons, your comfort zone, everything, it was really hard to go back into your former box because it no longer fit.
Yeah, it was so hard. And there were some other things that like made that experience because that was in May of 2018. And then during that summer we had really terrible forest fires. And so it was just smoky outside, and we couldn't take Andy outside, and my wife has asthma because the smoke was so bad. So like we couldn't enjoy the sun. Yeah, so it like made it worse because we couldn't enjoy the actual nice weather, and we were just in this place of, man, we got to get out of here. And so we had a trip booked it was a vacation. It was a 10-day vacation we had booked maybe 6 months ago to Rome in September of 2018. And we're sitting on the couch a month before we leave. Like we're like the master of these last minute crazy decisions. I don't know what the heck is wrong with our brains, but we like a month.
So you're very spontaneous.
You know, I don't feel spontaneous, but like I guess I am. I don't feel like I am. But
well, and let me stop you for 1 second because I want to also address the work side of this. I believe were already working remotely. Is that correct?
Yeah, and yes, I was.
So you had a job where you were working from home, and where was the office you were working at? Was it there in Oregon, or was it somewhere else?
Yeah, it was just, I would work at home some days, and then I worked out of a co-working space every once in a while in our hometown, or a coffee shop. I actually prefer coffee shops. Is one of my favorite places to work out of. So yeah, I would do that, and that's actually one of the things that triggered this sort of phase of our life. That's what triggered the Hawaii and then Australia trip. Was when we originally scheduled that, it was because we had Andy, and Michaela, when we had Andy, was planning to go back to work, but then we had Andy, and she changed, right? She changed her mind, and she decided, I want to be with Andy, and I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And so I supported that, and so we made that decision to do that, and so I was working this remote job, and my wife was a stay-at-home mom, and we didn't even realize it until after the decision, but after that happened, it clicked, and we were like, oh my God, we can be anywhere in the world. Like there's no rules. We can go anywhere.
There's nothing keeping us here except this smoky place we don't really want to be in.
Yeah, and the only thing that, I mean, the two things, I guess, that could keep us there, per se, is like all of our families there. which means all the grandparents are there. So, and currently Andy's both, was at the time the only grandkid. And so there's connection there. And then also just comfort, right? Like we know it. We've never been really
comfort zone. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we're familiar with it. It's easy. And that's why Australia was so good for us, because it sort of forced us out of our comfort zone and made us just realize, like, oh my God, the world is so much fun. Like, we're going to really miss out if we don't go travel, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you made another giant decision, right, before you left Oregon. What was that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Before we left Oregon, I don't.
Like you fully committed.
I did. Oh God, what was it? Did I go back on my commitment? Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. How do I forget about my house? Yeah, I know. That was one of the biggest things, right? Was like, I forget about my house. And,
that was the big thing you were talking about when we talked last time, was that you were selling your house to go on this trip.
Yeah, and it was a house that we loved. Like, we loved this house. It was our first house we owned. We'd owned it for like 2 or 3 years. And, you know, we painted it, we'd worked on it, we loved it. We had this backyard. We had and I don't know if you knew this, but we had 2 dogs, 2 Springer Spaniels.
I do remember that, yep.
And
I've been stalking you for a while. I know all these things.
Okay, it's the best, yeah. It like after like 4 or 6 months into traveling, because my parents were watching them, and we were sort of planning to like have my parents give them back once we were done traveling. But then my parents had like 6 dogs in the house because they had other dogs or something. Yeah, it just wasn't working out. And we made the pretty hard decision that they would be best off with another family who could give them the attention they deserved, and that was tough. And the house was tough. I mean, there was some really challenging stuff in there, like selling our house and like leaving in a month, like trying to sell our house in a month. You know, I mean, like crazy.
Yeah, you were in the midst of the hype of all of that when I talked to you last time. You were in the middle of that. Towards the end of that month, you're getting ready to leave within the week. You had gone through this whirlwind month. And selling your house,
yeah,
I think it sold immediately, right? But then you had a problem later?
Yeah, we had a buyer. Yeah, we had like a buyer in like 2 weeks, but then they backed out like in a month and a half into it. So then we actually had to pay like double house payments while we were traveling for like 3 months until it sold. So
wow.
It was it was a little inconvenient actually, but
not as easy as you had hoped.
No, it wasn't.
You've got to figure out and deal with along the way.
And I think that message is like, you can figure it out if you do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and you guys stayed really positive. Like I've been following your journey all along, and I remember when that happened, and I thought, wow, I would be in a panic. And you were like, here we got this place to stay, and we'll figure it out. And you guys stayed super, like, at least that's what you showed the world, is that you stayed really calm and just got through it.
I think for the most part that's the case, but there were definitely some times when I would turn to Michaela at night and be like, babe, what the hell have we done?
Right.
Like, oh my God, what have we done to ourselves?
Well, and of course, we expect there to be lots of ups and downs. So let's stop here. Yeah. We've got another bit coming up. I want to hear a little bit more then. So you've embarked on this journey. You sold your house. You're there. You're paying double payments. And that's where we're going to start when we get back. So again, this is Carla Taylor. Yeah. I'm interviewing Mike Blankenship. We're talking about living the digital nomad life here on Inspired Choices Network on the Bring Your Brilliance radio show. We'll be right back.
We all have a personal brand. It's what people say about you when you're not in the room. What if you knew how to clearly and confidently communicate your value in a compelling way? Tune into the Bring Your Brilliance radio show with personal branding and LinkedIn strategist Carla Taylor to discover the tools, resources, and inspiration you need to get started and keep growing. Are you ready to make your mark? Learn how to bring your brilliance by listening to the Bring Your Brilliance radio show every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Mountain, and 7 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is the Bring Your Brilliance radio show with personal branding and LinkedIn strategist Carla Taylor. To join today's conversation, call in the U.S. at 815-880-8255 or Canada at 613-800-8736 or Skype at Inspired Choices Network. Or ask a question or send a comment by email at bringyourbrilliance@gmail.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back. This is Carla Taylor from the Bring Your Brilliance radio show here on Inspired Choices Network. I am so thrilled to be a radio show host here on this network. It has absolutely changed the game for me. So if any of you guys are interested in becoming or learning about becoming a radio show host, if you've got a podcast or want to have a podcast, these are also replayed as podcasts, so it's a wonderful way to do that. I found I do so much better with a production team than trying to do all of that by myself. And Bring Your Brilliance has been an incredible journey for me. It's something that I finally, instead of just coaching everyone else, decided to step out myself and be modeling the way and walking the talk, and I am having the time of my life. 2019 has been my year of fun, and I can't even tell you, every day I meet awesome, amazing new people. I get to help them bring their brilliance to the world. I get to talk to people like Mike about the brilliant things he is doing, he and his wife and daughter are doing out in the world. We're going to talk more about that. But I wanted to take a moment to let you know I do have 2 spots right now open for social media ghostwriting. So I help you grow your presence on LinkedIn and write posts and articles and that sort of thing. I've grown my own LinkedIn by about 30% in the last 6 months, and I'm happy to help you do the same. And if you're too busy or not sure what to say, I'm here to help. Just go to bringyourbrilliance.net. So, Mike, if you would tell us for a moment what you're doing and how people can find you at the end of the show, we'll then jump back into your story after that.
Absolutely. So my main focus right now is on getyourgustoback.com, and my goal there is to help people reignite their inner fire that I believe we're all born with. But it's probably in some ways similar to your mission with Bringing Your Brilliance, Carla. But it's about helping people reignite their inner fire and creating a life that excites you, so that when you wake up every morning, you don't hit snooze. You roll out of bed ready for what, in anticipation
Jump out of bed.
Of what.
Yes.
That's right. Exactly, for what the day has to bring. So I have a free gift if you go over there and click the button on my homepage. You'll get a free gift a resource I wrote up that'll help you start breaking some of your bad habits, actually, which is something I help people do.
And what was that website again?
It's getyourgustoback.com.
Getyourgustoback.com. Awesome. So that's how people can find you, learn more about you, get your free gift. I love it. My consulting firm is called Ignite Consulting, and I'm all about igniting that inner spark and living a life you can marvel at. And you certainly are like the poster child for doing that. So you are now in your story. You've gone to Australia. You've made a big decision. You've sold your house. It didn't actually sell. Now you're abroad. Where did you go first? I think you mentioned you had a trip booked as where you started. Is that how that all started?
Yeah. So we had with Rome, we had Rome booked in September, and it was a month before this 10-day vacation that we already had planned. And my wife and I are sitting on the couch, and there's smoke outside, and we can't go anywhere in the nice weather. And we're just frustrated. And Mike's complaining about how he doesn't want to live in this town anymore. And he wishes his life was different. And my amazing wife, again, just looks at me and is like, well, we're going to Rome in a month. What if we just didn't come back? And I'm like...
That's a great question.
Yeah. Okay. What if, babe? What do you mean, what if? And so, one thing sort of led to another. Looking back on it, it's kind of, I'm not 100% sure how it happened. It was kind of like she asked that question, and at first I was pretty no, that's crazy. But then I started to warm up to the idea as we talked about it, and I was like, well, could we sell the house? That was the big question mark at the time. Can we get rid of the house in time so that we can go travel? And so it's like, well, call Tony and our real estate agent and see what he says. So I called. I'm like, all right. So I call Tony and say, hey, do you think we could sell our house in any reasonable amount of time? And like, well, it's a great market. Probably could sell it, in like a month, which you now know was actually 3 months, but still pretty good. You probably make some money on that. So we're like, oh man, well that sounds awesome. Like, okay. So we like one thing led to another at that point. We kind of we're like, well, can we list these? Like, yeah, we can list it. Like, we listed it, and then we started packing, and we started like making plans, and then we were caught up in this whirlwind of a decision we'd already made. Like, there was sort of no going back, and we just kind of had to take like one step to the next step and keep going. And that's what got us in those moments of fear before we hit it. Was that like we were too far along to go back, which was like a really beautiful thing, because when you're too far along to go back, you have to keep moving forward, and so you do these things that you wouldn't normally do, which make you a better person and develop you and grow you. And so we ended up going, and
you
we
guys
landed
didn't just talk about it. You took the action, so that then you weren't just talking, thinking, hoping, dreaming. You were taking actions that left you no out, and you had to keep moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like we just kept taking that next step, right? We kept taking that next little step toward doing it, and eventually you're so far along that there's no going back, and you're in the middle of it. And then there's this sort of like midway point where you're really afraid, but you can't leave, and you're just scared, but you have to keep going. And then you get on the other side of that fear, and you're like, ow, why was I scared? Why was I even afraid of this? Like, looking back on it now, today, Michaela and I are just like, what? It's so silly that we were afraid. And actually, it's increased our confidence to do so many different things now. I don't know if you know this, but when I left to go to travel, I was working full time for a company based out of Oregon as a remote worker. And it was only like 3 months into our travel that or like 4 months, that I left and went full-time freelance, which I've always been afraid of doing. And so I firmly believe that it was the decision. Yeah, I firmly believe that it was the decision to travel and go outside my comfort zone that made me comfortable to then become freelance, being able to want to do that.
Well, and I think that's the perfect example of how we do one thing is how we do everything. So when you're getting bolder and taking bigger leaps and bigger steps in your life, it emboldens you everywhere, not just in the travel part. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened. So yeah, I did not realize you went freelance full time.
Yeah, and I did. Yeah, I did. And I truly believe it was influenced by. I really believe it was influenced by the decision to go travel the world. I don't think that we would have done it if. I don't think we would have done it, or I would have went. Yeah.
You took a leap and went to Rome. Decided not to come home. Sold your house. Had to deal with some double payments for a few months. Took the next month a leap to go full-time freelance. I mean, you are just facing these challenges head on. So where did you go after that first stop in Rome, and how did you decide where to go next?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we because it's like Rome was amazing, and we were there for only 10 days, and it was kind of like a vacation type of thing. Like I wasn't really working during that time, like I did in Australia, or like I have been for the rest of the time. And then we was like, well, what do we do next? So so what we did do, I can tell you what we did do. What we did do was went to Porto in Portugal, which was an amazing experience. And there's a couple things that help us decide where to go. One of the things is how how much money do we have? So, like, some places are just more expensive than others. Like Paris and London were extraordinarily expensive to stay in an entire month. So we had to do that during a time when we were a little more, when we were a little more like, had a little extra money.
When your cash flow was working out.
Was going well. Exactly. Whereas like in the beginning, Portugal is actually quite inexpensive. So we were able to do that.
I've heard that.
Yeah. So we actually paid like maybe, I don't know, I think it was like $1,300 for an Airbnb for a month, which is like really reasonable. So, and I mean, I would say the average that we pay per month for Airbnbs is like maybe $2,000 to $2,500. But in the beginning, we were paying less. My income has increased a little bit since we left, but in the beginning, we were doing like $1,000 or $1,500 per month. So, I mean, you can do it. It's not, it's not super expensive necessarily. And you can do it probably
fairly similar to a house payment would be. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think because our house payment was $1,000 or so, and so yeah, I don't think it is a whole lot different. And people just get it's just an unknown before you do it, and so it's really nerve-wracking to go and take the leap. And but I think that once you do it, you can just like kind of work within your budget. I mean, there's people who do this. Most of them are single, but people who do this who just stay in hostels and they love it. Like that's just they're just loving it. The online technology and services we have available to us makes travel so much more more available
different than it used to
ever.
be, for sure.
Yeah, it's so much more available to us. And so so we've been to 11 countries, 10 or 11.
Can you name them all? Do you remember all of them?
I certainly can try. So it was Italy, Portugal, Scotland, England, Greece, Spain, Romania. Now I'm going out of order. France. And then I think there's a couple of others in there. But our favorite, and now we're in the Czech Republic. But our favorite has been our two favorites. We have two favorites. Our two favorites have been France.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. What are your favorites? So you have two. Okay.
Yeah, France and Scotland.
France and Scotland?
Yeah.
And why?
France we love because I love the pride that people take in everything they do. There's so much pride in the stuff they do. You go to any restaurant and the waiters care so much about what they're giving you and the service they're providing for you. We found they sort of have this reputation for being rude and snobby. We actually found them to be very pleasant and kind.
Now, do you think having an adorable daughter with you might have made a difference for you?
Yes, 100%. And we had a couple friends in France who actually told us they think that people are being so nice to us, at least partly because we had a really cute little daughter. So I'm glad we did, though, because it made our time there amazing. So thanks, Andy. But Scotland, we love Scotland because it just feels like it should always be Christmas time in Scotland. It's just a beautiful place to drive through. It's cozy. You go into these restaurants and they give you haggis and potatoes, and then you sit by the fire and it's just so comfortable and cozy and wonderful. And they have amazing castles. Our favorite city was, and we drove all over Scotland. We were actually in Scotland for 3 months. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's a long. I thought you stayed somewhere longer. I didn't realize it was Scotland.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we stayed in Scotland for 3 months, and the other place we were in for 3 months is Croatia. I forgot to mention Croatia.
Okay.
And yeah.
And was there a reason why you chose to stay longer in those two places?
Yeah. So Scotland was simply because we got there and we loved it, and it was just like amazing, and so we wanted to stay longer. Which is like a cool thing that you can do when you're doing what we're doing, is you can just kind of play it by ear. In fact, it's funny, like a lot of people are like, man, how do you know, like we talk to our parents who like have to make plans like 6 months or a year in advance. And I'm like, man, we're like making trip plans and flight plans like 2 weeks in advance sometimes. I mean, just like, and it's nothing, no big deal. Just funny how that perspective changed. But
and it is a lot easier too when you're over in Europe, that everything is so close and accessible, and it's not like flying across the ocean to travel.
Exactly. Absolutely. And that's definitely true. Also, flights in Europe, once you're in Europe, are so cheap. It's like $50 a ticket to fly to another country in Europe. Like so much cheaper than the US.
So have you done all flights? Have you done some trains? Like how are the different ways that you're getting from country to country?
Yeah, so our primary way is flying. We usually fly, so I think we did like 15 flights last year or something. Wow. But we also, our preferred way, if it's like 5 to 6 hour drive, we'll drive it. Because we really enjoy driving, so we prefer to drive it. It's just nice because then,
So do you get a new rental car in every country, or how do you manage that part?
Yeah, we just book rentals if we we don't. So if we're going to travel, so what we do is if we're going to travel from one country to another, we're going to drive. Obviously, we get a rental car. But we usually don't have a rental car when we go to a country. We just book Airbnbs that are in city centers, so we can walk everywhere. Like our place in Prague right now is right in the middle of the city. So you walk out the door and there's cars going by and people, and so we're like getting super used to city life, actually, which is funny, because we weren't used to city life before we left. And so that's what we do, because renting cars can get kind of expensive every month.
Yeah. So how do you balance? I mean, all of this sounds amazing and awesome, but it's also like, what are the things that have surprised you? I think you've talked about some of the things that have surprised you, that it was easier than you thought, but what are some of those, and what are also some of the things that are harder than you thought? What's it like living out of a suitcase, or do you live out of a suitcase, or how does all of that work for you?
Yeah. So like with work, for example, which I think is like a really pertinent part of this, is like how do you freaking find time to work when you're in a new country every month?
Yeah, how do you balance work with all the beauty and awesomeness that you're describing?
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons I went full-time freelance, was because I was having a lot of meetings at my full-time job, and I wanted to get rid of the meetings so that I could go enjoy. Because with the time zone difference, the meetings was like in the afternoon when I would want to go out and play. So I ended exactly, and so basically it's always harder in the beginning when you're first doing it. After a year of doing this, I've sort of got down a rhythm of when we first get to a new place. My first goal is to find, well, not my first goal, but like one of my first goals for the first day we're there, or the first or second day, is to find a co-working space nearby or a coffee shop where I can pull out my computer and work on the Wi-Fi. If you're in the city...
And has there been Wi-Fi in every place you've gone?
Every single place. Yeah, every single Airbnb we've been in has Wi-Fi. So if worst comes to worst, I just work at the place we're staying at. Yeah.
Okay.
And also, if you stay in a city center in a pretty well-developed city, like Paris or London or Prague or Edinburgh, there's pretty much always going to be a coffee shop close by that you can work at least. And even in Croatia, there's a ton of coffee shops. But some countries it doesn't feel quite as acceptable to pull out your computer and work. That's something I struggled with a little bit in Croatia. Was like because there they're developed, but they're not like as well developed as, and they're not quite as I don't know, they're not quite as metropolitan or like like big cities, I guess is the way to say it, as some of the other places we've been. So you have to be adaptable, I think, is the first lesson. But if you stay in a city center, there's gonna be places you can go and duck out for a little bit. And usually,
do you work like a? Go ahead, like a 4-hour day, a 6-hour day. Like how often do you work?
Yeah, so my schedule, how I do it is I wake up, and I usually go to work around 8 or 9 a.m. and I'll sneak out and go to a coffee shop and work till around noon. And then I'll come back, and Michaela and I and little Andy will go explore, and we'll just go have fun and do whatever that day, or we'll just relax if it's just a relaxed day, because we still need those. And then we'll and then in the evening I'll usually maybe around 4 or 5 I'll go back and work a little bit more. And usually that work I just do from home. I just work a little bit from home. Usually. Andy goes to bed at like 7 p.m., so I sometimes work a little past that. But I think but again, that adapts with every place that we go. So I think the most important lesson is to be flexible and adaptable to what's going on.
Well, and that's such a great example of a work-life integration schedule where you're not solidly doing one or the other, but you're finding the pockets of time for both. So that's great. So what about your clients? Are you mostly working with clients back in the U.S., or you're getting clients wherever you go? Like, how does that part work?
Yeah, so like most of my clients are either referrals or they're from Facebook, because that's pretty decent following on there. And so I get most of my clients from there, and they're all in the U.S. And right now, I'm fortunate enough to have 4 clients that I write for, and I'm on retainer with each of them. So they pay me every month to write new content, and those retainers are indefinite.
Retainers are awesome.
Oh my God, they're the best. So I'm just cruising. I'm just like cruising on these and making, more than enough money. And sure, something could happen where a client fires me or something, but it's all at your mindset, how you perceive that. Like, I've decided that if
you know how to get more clients now because you've done it. Yeah.
Exactly. You just do it. I go and reach out to my connections and I find someone. And there's always, I think that's the biggest thing is like if people just step out, there's always a way to figure it out. There's always going to be a way to figure it out. I think that we are so
always
much more
a way to figure it out.
Yeah, I think we're so much more capable than we give ourselves credit for. And people forget that because...
So we've only got about a minute left.
Okay.
And it sounds like you're dropping some good wisdom sound bites here, but what's the last 1 or 2 thoughts you want to leave us with?
Okay. I guess that the idea that you're way more capable than you probably give yourself credit for, and if you think you're capable, you're even more capable. Like, you're no matter where you're at, relative to other people, you're just as capable as Jeff Bezos. Like, you're just as capable as the most successful people on this planet. You can figure anything out. Our brains are the most effective. Like, the supercomputers that we built don't even hold a light how efficient and creative our minds are. So, like, our brains are so incredibly powerful, the most powerful computers on the planet. And they can solve practically any problem if we just ask the right questions of them. So... I think we're out of time. GetYourGustoBack.com is where we can find Mike. BringYourBrilliance.net is where you can find me. And as Mike has shown us, go out there and just do it. Be bold, be brave, be brilliant, and be you, and live that life that you can truly marvel at. Thank you so much, Mike, for spending some time with us. I know it's really late at night.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Bring Your Brilliance with Carla Taylor. For the latest updates and info on personal branding, please follow and interact with Carla Taylor on LinkedIn. And be sure to visit www.itstimetobringit.com. Join Carla Taylor every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Mountain and 7 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Until then, keep